evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for attending this evening. This Tuesday, July 8th, on a nice, cool day in Blowing Rock. Before we get started, they will start paving the road again tonight. So if you're parked on the unpaved section, we will take a recess at 10 till 7 so you can move your vehicles, okay?
They would actually prefer on either side of Main Street because of the trucks. Yes.
Okay. So either side of Main Street. I know. We'll make it work. So we will take a recess at 10 till or 6:50 to allow people to move their cars. We're going to have a call to order. Hello, ladies. Cat Perry.
Here.
David.
Here.
Melissa.
Here.
Doug. Here. Pete. Here. Okay, everybody's in attendance. Would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, council approval of minutes, June 10th, 2025, June 24th, 2025, mid-year retreat meeting and closed sessions. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Regular agenda adoption. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All righty. Consent agenda. Annual tax report and order of collection, fireworks permit, Blowing Rock Chamber, Blue Ridge Relay, and the 321 resolution / safety. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. No discussion on consent. And how do you vote?
Aye.
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 Okay. All right, moving right along. Public comments. Do we have anyone that would like to speak for their allotted 3-minute time?
Yes. Can I go first?
Now, this will not be on the public hearing. You'll speak during the public hearing section of proposed debt financing. So it's on that, you need to wait. Other than that, step on up.
All right.
And just state name and address for the record.
Eric Brinker, 232 Flannery Fork Farms Road, Blowing Rock, North Carolina, 28605. I'm here today to promote having food trucks in town. And I understand that this may have come up in y'all's camp retreat that you did, but I don't know that any resolution was brought forward. We were recently made aware that there's an ordinance against having food trucks because we were going to try to have them every Tuesday and Wednesday in our parking lot between the restaurant and the outfitters. As some of you may know, the restaurant is closed on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. So from a parking perspective, I think we can check the box that we would have plenty of parking by losing that parking spot that we'd have the truck in. And we all know that the town needs more options for food, and especially during the busy season. We can't service all the people that come up here. We see this as another way that we can do that. The food truck industry as a whole has been hit pretty hard by the hurricane, and we think this is a good way to help them out. Our plan was to alternate food trucks week to week and let them have an opportunity to make sales. We're not making money off of the food truck itself. Where we do make money is if people are there eating in our parking lot, they're probably going to go have a drink at the outfitters and maybe buy some things. We've proved that that concept works with the special events permits that we've had for the Trout Fest, and as well as the gear swap that we did. All 3 times that we've had the food truck, our shop has tripled in sales from what it normally does from what it did from the previous year. And our beverage sales at the restaurant were up higher, a little over $1,000 a day higher than they normally are. I know that the social also sales were up the days that we did those events. So I don't think it's having a negative impact on any of the businesses by having a food truck in the parking lot. I don't know how many other people would want to do this, and I'd be for it if other businesses wanted to do that, but I think we have a good solution to handle having a food truck on our own property. Are there any questions?
I remember a couple of years ago when we talked about this, there was some pushback from some of the bricks and mortar people saying that they didn't think that was in the best interest. And I understand the change because we do need places to eat. And so thank you for coming up. And I'm assuming that other restaurant people have the same feeling.
Yeah, the ones that I've talked to have. I am told that there may be some people that are in opposition, but I have not met those people. So I can't say 100%.
All I can say is the council is looking into considering those options. It was brought up, as you mentioned, summer retreat.
So yeah, I would just request that you guys, I don't know what it would take to modify the ordinance, or if we could propose doing kind of a test run and give you the data from it and do it on the days that we're closed right here during the busy season for the rest of the July until school starts.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have someone else that would like to speak for 3 minutes?
We thought we might need all 12. Yeah. Thanks for covering it.
He stole half of it.
That's because you all were here to support him.
Yes, we were here.
All right, great.
How do we actually move forward with that?
What will happen is, go ahead.
I'll say we can be in contact with you and share some feedback.
Yeah. Shane, you have Kevin get in touch with
We'll
him.
do that.
Yeah, and there are options out there that I think Shane will go over with you.
Kevin sent me on the day he's out of town.
Yeah.
That's Kevin. All right.
Thank you guys. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. All right, now we have a special presentation. This is from North Carolina Historic Preservation Office, which, if I'm not mistaken, is part of the North Carolina Department of Cultural and Natural Resources. I think I got that right. And I'm not sure if we have both Sarah Woodard and Christy Brantley on the line, or they were going to try to make this trip, so they couldn't make the trip, so they decided they'd be able to Zoom and, of course, answer questions. Now, if you do have questions, I will ask you. I'm going to keep this informal this time. If you have questions, you'll have to come up to the podium and state your name and address and ask your question. Okay? So, who do we have Christy, or is this Sarah? Oh.
We're both here, yes.
Okay. Very good. If you would, to start this out, could you give us just a real brief explanation on what your department does and how it affects different communities in the state?
Sure. You're talking about our office or our entire, the Department of Natural and Cultural Resources?
As far as from a historic preservation aspect. Yes, ma'am.
I have a brief PowerPoint, if you would like me just to give you that rundown real quick.
That would be great. Go with that with council?
Okay.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Okay, and you guys can hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Let me get this going. I'm going to share my screen real quick, and then I'm going to switch screens. So Oh, I'm disabled, I'm not able to share the screen. Shane, is there something that you can click on your end?
Try now.
Yep, got it now, thank you. Okay, you're gonna see yourself real quick, Shane, I'm sorry. Okay, there we go. Okay. Are you just seeing one photo right now? Okay, wonderful.
Yep.
So our department, our office is the Historic Preservation Office, and we're housed in the Department of Natural and Cultural Resources. And we're going to talk with you a little bit today about different historic designations. There are 3 main ones in North Carolina: National Historic Landmarks, which is basically just a federal designation only, and we have nothing to do with that. There are about 40 in North Carolina. Some examples are Biltmore, Thomas Wolfe Memorial, the Lighthouse, Cape Hatteras National Lighthouse. And then the other federal designation is the National Register of Historic Places, and Sarah's going to talk in more depth about that. That is a federal designation or federal listing, but we as a state administer it. And then finally, there are local designations, and that's what a local government would do. It is, with the state, we have no purview over that. The federal government has no purview over that. That is a local situation only, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. So in 1966, Congress passed the National Historic Preservation Act, which set up state historic preservation offices and tribal historic preservation offices. Also set up the National Register for Historic Places and Section 106, which I believe that was one of your questions, and we'll touch on that briefly in a few minutes. In 1977, we began state historic preservation offices and tribal historic preservation offices began to get federal funding through what's called a Historic Preservation Fund. And that is not tax dollars. It is from gas and oil leases from the Outer Continental Shelf. So those funds started coming to us in around 1977. In 1980, Congress realized the local government was not involved in this partnership, so they created what they called certified local governments. And we'll talk about that again also in a few minutes. But around that point, that historic preservation fund that we were getting from the Outer Continental gas and oil leases, each year, 10% of that was required to go back into the local government. And we do that through certified local government grants each year. And on the other side of the screen, you will see the state of North Carolina's legislation that talks about local government designations and the Historic Preservation Commission. My presentation is a little wordier than usual because I've shared this with Shane, and he can share it with you if you'd like, and I wanted you to have reference to all this legislation so that you could look it up for yourself. This is what we call our HPO web, and I'll provide a link to that for you. These are all the historic resources that we are aware of in North Carolina. There's a legend for this when you go to it. The blue is National Register properties or districts. The green is our study listed properties or districts, and the purple are local designations. And you can't really see those as well on here, but I'll show you another map where I turn some layers off later and you can see that. It just as a side note, if you're a history nerd like Sarah and I, and you like to do research, if you were to click on this map, on the blue dots, the National Register nominations, it will take you to a link and take you directly to the National Register nomination, and especially the later ones have bibliographies, some sources that you can refer to yourself. So it really is a lot of fun, and I promise you, if you do this, though, you will go down a rabbit hole. So one of the questions asked was, what does Blowing Rock have? And this is just an up-close view of our HBO web that I just showed you of Blowing Rock. We used to have the Green Park National Register Historic District. It's on my right. I'm not sure what it's showing on your end, but hopefully you can see it down below on the right. And then at the top, you see the blue shaded area. I'm pretty sure that's the Blue Ridge Parkway, though I'm not sure if that's the official name of the listing or not, but I think so. Right, Sarah? Pretty sure. There are a couple of blue dots and another blue, the Bardell Family Cottages Historic District that are National Register. And those orange dots, the light orange dots, or they're light orange on my end that you see, are properties that we have surveyed. And then there's a couple of darker orange dots or stars or outlines, and that's where what we call a federal undertaking has gone through, and another party has reviewed that area and they determined it was likely eligible for the National Register, but it is not listed in the National Register yet. Does anyone have any questions so far?
Council?
Okay, I know we've thrown a lot of information at you. I've shared this with Shane so that he can share it with you. And we will be available for you after this for any questions you have this evening or even tomorrow. So what I want to talk a little bit about, I work with local preservation commissions, and there's a lot of misunderstanding between what a National Register district or a National Register designation listing is compared to a local designation. And I've got this little chart here. As I mentioned earlier, the National Register of Historic Places is a federal program. The National Park Service actually lists, even though our state, we administer it, and it goes through a National Register Advisory Commission, but it ultimately goes to the Park Service, and they make the determination. A local program is the local government designates historic properties or districts by ordinance. The National Register is not regulated, so if there's a property on a National Register, it can be listed today, you can tear it down tomorrow, you can do anything to it that you want to, the private property owner can. There are no restrictions unless the property owner or that property has received some sort of federal benefit, like historic tax credits or a grant, or there's been some benefit, then there are some restrictions put in place. For local designations, those properties are regulated by certificates of appropriateness that are usually heard by the Historic Preservation Commission. There are what's considered minor works and major works. And if it's a minor work to the property, usually the staff can go ahead and give the okay to the property owner to do that. But if the staff denies and says, no, you can't do that, then it goes to the Historic Preservation Commission to review. And then the larger work, like a new building or additions, bigger types of works, which are called major works, automatically go to the Historic Preservation Commission for review, and all of that would be outlined in your design standards. So the National Register of Historic Places are anything that's listed is considered in federal undertakings, and that's that section 106 I mentioned earlier. And there's a link at the end that takes you to a citizen's guide to section 106 that can explain that a lot better than I can. But basically, if there's any federal money coming in, any federal permitting, a property in the area of potential effect would be reviewed, and they would try to mitigate any, what is the word that's usually used, Sarah? Any bad effects to adverse effects. All right, bad is my big word for the day, but adverse effects to the National Register property. If it's only locally designated, it's not considered in these federal undertakings, unless, of course, it's also in the National Register, and it can be better. Now, National Register of Historic Places, contributing properties are briefly, locally designated districts are not eligible for tax credits unless they're also listed in the National Register. But individually, locally designated properties can receive up to a 50% tax deferment, but they have to be individually designated and not designated as part of the district. Now, they can be in a local district, but they have to have that individual ordinance just for that property. There are over 100 historic preservation commissions in North Carolina, so over 100 communities feel that local designation is the way to go to preserve their historic resources. And this is just a wonky map of North Carolina that kind of shows where they all are at. The blue are local preservation commissions. The green notes are those local preservation commissions that have become certified, part of certified local government. There are about 55 of them. Then back to our map. You can do all kinds of fun things with this map. I think I mentioned if you were a history nerd like Sarah and I, you can do more research. But if you're also a map nerd too, you can play with the layers and play with all kinds of stuff. So I'm cutting all the layers off, and I'm just showing you the locally designated properties and districts in North Carolina that we are aware of. So because it is a local issue, you do not have to notify us when a property is locally designated. Now, state legislation does require that we review the report and offer non-binding comments. And we ask that once a decision is made that you let us know, but, so often planners wear many different hats and a lot's going on in your community that sometimes the planner just doesn't get back to us to let us know. So we try to keep up with it. So there are more than what you see here, but this is a good representation of local designations across North Carolina. So why would you have a local commission? Well, the state legislators felt that the heritage of our state is one of our most valued and important assets. All of this is found in 160D 940. Preservation stabilizes and increases property values, and it strengthens the overall economy of the state. In addition, it promotes the use and conservation of education, pleasure, and enrichment of the residents of the city or county and the state as a whole. So our legislators felt very strongly about how important preservation was, and there is several statutes that speak to that. And in the beginning, if you get a copy of this PowerPoint presentation, in the beginning you'll see a list of those. It also, legislation also spells out what we're to preserve and protect. So the important thing is you have to make the argument that what you are preserving locally is of special significance either in history, prehistory, architecture, and or culture, and it must possess integrity. So if it's a district, a local district, it has to possess integrity of design, setting, materials, feelings, and association. And if it's just an individual landmark, it needs to possess integrity of one of those or workmanship. I promise not to quiz you guys at the end of this. I know we're throwing a lot of information at you. We do have a basic landmark designation flowchart that pretty much goes over how to individually landmark a property. Districts is slightly different, but it's similar. But basically, the local governing board would establish a preservation commission by ordinance. The preservation commission, once established, would set up rules of procedure and design standards. And we can help you with the design standards. I'll show you an example in the next screen, I believe. After that, the Preservation Commission conducts an informal inventory of properties in their town or areas in their town that could be potential landmarks or districts. And then they have a report made or make one themselves. They send that report to us, we review it, our state office reviews it, and we have 30 days to review it. We send it back to you. We do this all through your HPC staff liaison, so whoever would be the staff liaison. Right now, I'm just going to assume it's Shane. So Shane would send it to me, we would review it, and send it back after 30 days with our comments. Our comments are non-binding. After that, the Preservation Commission would have a public hearing, and then the local governing board would have a public hearing. They can do that jointly if they would like. And ultimately, the local governing board would decide what to designate, and it would be designated by ordinance. And then there's several steps that the commission would need to as far as notify the owners and the tax officials and register of deeds. But once it's designated by ordinance, then it's regulated. And 160D, North Carolina General Statute 160D 947 spells out how it's to be regulated. In a district, it's just the exterior. And individual landmarks, it's just the exterior, unless the owner gives permission for specific interior features. So say they have this great mantel from 1825, that can be included in the designation, and the HP Historic Preservation Commission can have purview over that if the owner gives them permission in the original, and it's in the original ordinance. It's up to the Historic Preservation Commission's discretion whether they want to regulate paint color, significant landscape or natural features or historic signs. And remember, if the commission decides to regulate historic signs, they cannot regulate content. It's just the way the sign appears. As far as paint color, there are several local governments that regulate paint color. We don't recommend that. That's not the hill you want to die on, but we recommend, because paint, it changes. It's not, but it's up to the commission. It's up to you guys what you decide to do. We just feel like that's just one more problem that could potentially be avoided, and it's not going to matter in some years. The property owner would have to apply for a COA and have a COA for the building permit as issued. It would also need one even if there's no building permit required. And all of this is outlined in the General Statute 160D 947. And these are some examples on the fronts of several design standards updates that have recently been done. I believe all of these are done with CLG grants, helped them, these local governments do this. They're also done based on the Secretary of Interior standards. So those are standards put out for rehabilitation. So those are standards put out by the Secretary of Interior. And sometimes local governments, when they're first establishing an HPC, they just use the Secretary of Interior standards as their design guidelines. It's kind of like the 10 Commandments of historic preservation. And they're very simple. You can get in the weeds with them if you want to, but they're very simple. And I have a link to those at the end of this program as well. One of the questions was how to protect properties from being demolished or torn down. So the National Historic Landmark, if property is designated as a National Historic Landmark or a National Register, is listed in the National Register, they don't protect from demolition. Local designation is the strongest measure in North Carolina to protecting properties. And unfortunately, a commission cannot deny demolition of a property that's locally designated or in a local district, but they can delay it for up to 365 days per the statutes, and in that time, they can work with the property owner on alternatives, whether it's moving the property or finding another buyer or whatever. Now, they don't have to delay it for up to 365 days, but they can. The only time a property can be denied is if it's within a locally designated district or individually designated and is considered of statewide significance per North Carolina General Statute 160D 949C. And that's a totally separate process, and it's based on National Register criteria. And it involves our state historic preservation officer. And basically, what the Historic Preservation Commission would do is do a separate application after it's designated to try to have it found to be of statewide significance. There are only 11 properties across North Carolina that are of statewide significance. So though we all know that there are many more properties than that are significant to North Carolina, it's just a matter of doing the paperwork. So only 11 have gone through that process. Some of the additional questions that were asked was, what's an overlay district? And that is a type of zoning that is basically what a local historic district is. It is an overlay district. It's state legislation in 160D 944 allows for another kind of district, and it's based on what the district looked like with the period of significance. But I don't know that there are any in North Carolina that use that type of district, possibly with Old Salem and possibly Viagra, but almost all local historic districts are basically overlay districts. The other question was tax benefits, and I touched on this briefly, but if you're in a local district, there are no tax benefits, no deferments, no tax benefits, unless you're also in a National Register district. Individually locally designated properties receive up to a 50% tax deferment, and then National Register properties or contributing properties in the National Register Historic District are potentially eligible for rehabilitation tax credits. The state of North Carolina has a 15% residential and commercial tax credit that they offer. And if you're in a tier 1 or tier 2 county, well, let me back up. For non-commercial, so for residential properties, there's a 15% tax credit potentially available. If you have a commercial property that's in in a National Register district or individually listed in a National Register, the federal government offers a 20% commercial tax credit, and the state also offers a 15% commercial tax credit. If you're in a tier 1 or 2 county, the state will offer you an additional 5%. I think Watauga is a tier 2 county by the Department of Commerce, but you would need to check that. But just to check behind me, but the potential is up to 40% commercial tax credit, and that has been a huge economic boost for a lot of local governments. And then you mentioned there was a question about grants. I'm also going to share a link that gives you links to potential grants: National Park Service grants, National Trust for Historic Preservation, Covington Foundation here in North Carolina. There are a couple of others. One of the main grants is Certified Local Government Grant. So local governments that have an Historic Preservation Commission that have been active for a year or more can apply for Certified Local Government status. And as I mentioned earlier, 10% of our historic preservation funding goes back into these certified local governments in grant form. The issue now is there's no money. The Historic Preservation Fund is not being funded as of right now for federal year 26 and forward. So I'm not sure what's going to happen to our CLG program or the CLG grants. If we don't receive the federal funding, we can't award historic preservation funding CLG grants in that way. So I kind of left that off until we see what happens with all this federal funding that's going on. But that, just kind of keep that in the back of your mind, that is a possibility. And here are the links. I've included a link to our page on Historic Preservation Commissions. There's also a statewide preservation listserv that is a huge help to hear how other commissions are doing things. And if you belong to the North Carolina Planning Listserv, Shane, I'm not sure if you do or not, you get lots of emails every day from that planning listserv. The preservation, which are great, a lot of it's very helpful, but the preservation listserv is not quite that busy. It goes in spurts. Sometimes you'll get several emails in a day, and sometimes you won't hear for a few weeks. But it is a good resource to help connect you to other local governments with the Historic Preservation Commission, or if you're just interested in preservation. We have an HBO YouTube channel that has several training. Our certified local governments are required to meet training every year, and that was set up during the COVID pandemic to help them meet their training requirements. One of those, and it's available to anyone. One of those videos is about a 30-minute one about Secretary of Interior standards, and it's very helpful. I would encourage you guys to look at that. There's also some disaster planning and preparation videos, and lots of great videos on that. And then the HBO Web is that awesome map that I showed you guys a couple of times in my preservation. I shared the Rehabilitation Tax Credit Program with you, grant opportunities, Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation, and there's a citizen's guide put out by the Council of Historic Preservation, and the link is there for that too. So that is all I have for you. I know I threw a lot of information at you today, and Sarah's going to throw some more, and we really, really wish we could be there in person to kind of interact with you, and hopefully everything will be squared away and we'll be able to do that in the future. However, please feel free to email me if you have any questions or reach out to me.
Okay, council, do we have questions for this group?
I have a question.
Okay.
Thank you first for the presentation, super informative. What comes first, a architectural survey or a commission? Is one based on the other?
No, sir. So you probably have had, I will let Sarah talk about architectural surveys. So we try to survey the entire, we want the whole state surveyed, even those without commissions. That's our ultimate goal, is to have everything surveyed. But once a commission is formed, you need to do an informal survey, and you can use what we've already done. A lot of commissions use what we've already done, but you know your area better than we do. And you need to do an informal survey of properties that are of special significance to you and have a list of those properties, so that you kind of have a guide for what you would like to designate.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Council. Now, you had mentioned, Ms. Brantley, that Sarah has some additional information, or is she answering questions?
Yes, she has. Sarah is our Survey and National Register Supervisor, and that is her wheelhouse. She's got some additional information.
Okay. Well, let's move forward with Sarah.
We are lucky to
Ms. Woodard, we're not picking up your vocal.
Yeah, we can barely hear you.
Yes.
Oh, is that better?
That's better, yes.
Okay, sorry about that. So I was just saying that we wish we could be there, if for no other reason than it's like 110 degrees down here today. It's not really that much, but so I am the Architectural Survey and National Register Branch Supervisor, and what my branch does is we document the state's historic architectural record, and we do that through survey work. We have over 135,000 resources documented. It's all kinds of stuff, individual signs, bridges, fancy houses, just you name it. If a human built it, we'll document it. And that you can see all those little dots on the map. The orange ones, which are survey, don't even show up because there's so many of them. It'll just be a giant blob of orange. You can't see those till you zoom in. And then we also recognize, through the National Register program, we recognize our historic architecture. So I'll just give you a quick overview of the National Register specifically. It is the nation's list of places that we, meaning like collective we, society, that we think are important to our history. The National Register is honorary. Christy touched on this. There's no restrictions or protections. It's the same coin, two different sides, unless federal money or federal licensing, federal permitting gets involved. To get listed, the sort of quick version of that, the resource needs to be nominated, and the nomination document is going to ask and answer a few key questions. So, is this resource historically important or significant? Significant is the National Register word you'll hear quite a bit. So is this resource significant? Then you're also going to have to ask and answer the question, does it look like it did when it became significant? So that's the integrity piece. Christy mentioned that with local designations as well. But it boils down to, does it look like it did when it became important? Then when did it become important? That's the period of significance. And that's going to guide you. But all of these are interconnected, but it will guide you in terms of what aspects of that resource contribute to the historic significance. And then finally, where is it? And really specifically, where are the edges? So for a district, you're trying to have a group of resources that have a shared or connected history, and it's the greatest concentration of those resources. For an individual resource, it might just be a few square feet around, or maybe an acre or something around the single resource. It all depends on what makes it significant. For a farm, a farm might have a boundary that includes several hundred acres, for example, so it can really vary. To make a judgment about historic significance, the National Register has a set of criteria. And so a resource can be eligible for listing in basically 4 different ways. So the first one is criterion A, and that is an event. It could be like a single event, like a sit-in or something, or it could be what's called a pattern of events. So, for instance, a farm might be significant within the context of the pattern of the history of agriculture in in Watauga County or whatever county the resource is in. Criterion B, that's for an association with an important historically important person. Important is different than famous. And they're kind of, the person can't just be the mayor lived here. It's got to be the mayor who sort of precipitated a certain change, or kind of was more of a big deal than simply being the elected official. Criterion C, that's generically what's called the architecture criteria. That means that the resource has its historic significance is rooted in its architectural design. And then criterion D is for archaeology. So does the resource have potential to yield important historic information? So that is the very, very most basic, bare bones description of what the National Register is and what a National Register nomination would do. In North Carolina specifically, we start with the study list. On the map that Christy showed earlier when she looked at Blowing Rock as a district was put on the study list in 1982, but no one at that time defined where that was, and we are kind of perplexed, but our survey file, like an actual physical file, doesn't include any information in it about what was being considered, or what part of Blowing Rock was being considered. So Blowing Rock would need to come in and do an application, a study list application. It's pretty straightforward, and it gives us an idea of what you all want to do, and then we carry that to our National Register Advisory Committee. And they are a group of experts from across the state. They convene 3 times a year, and they would take a look at the application and say, yes, we think this is a good potential candidate for the National Register. It's not a definite you are going to get listed, but it's a nice bright yellow light. It's not quite a green light, but it's a bright yellow light that says we think this will work. From the time your consultant, so if Blowing Rock or anyone, even an individual person, wanted to pursue listing for a district or for an individual resource, from the time you submit a draft nomination to the time it goes to the National Register Advisory Committee, that review committee, usually takes about 9 months. The National Register Advisory Committee, like I said, they meet 3 times a year, they review nominations. Their job is to make a recommendation to our State Historic Preservation Officer as to whether this resource meets the National Register criteria. We try and have those really buttoned up by the time that nomination gets to that committee. They do not rubber stamp, but we do our best to get that nomination into the strongest form possible so that they can rubber stamp, so that they can say, yeah, this is good. And then the State Historic Preservation Officer officially sends the nomination to the keeper of the National Register. The keeper, that is a role within the National Park Service, which is within the Department of the Interior. And the keeper is an actual person. She does not wear a crown. She does not carry a scepter, but I feel like she should. If I had that job, I would definitely be angling for like a throne. And then the Park Service has 45 days to review the nomination. And so one thing, and I need to take one step back because it was a question that we had from Blowing Rock beforehand. As the nomination moves through the process, when it's getting ready to go to that NRAC meeting, we will do public notification. For an individual resource, we send a letter to the property owner. We say, hey, we're about to, put this through the end phase of the process. If it's a district, if it's a larger district, we'll run an ad in the newspaper of record. If it's a smaller district, we'll send mailings to every single property owner within the district. And property owners have the opportunity to object. So if it's an individual resource owned by, just one person, they can object, and that will stop. That would stop any listing. If the owner doesn't want it, it's not going to happen for an individual resource. Now, if that individual resource is owned by a public entity, say it's a county, like a county courthouse, the public entity can't object. I mean, they can object, but they can't object in an official way that's going to stop the nomination. If you have a district, if 50% of the property owners from the district object, then that would stop that process. That did happen in Winston-Salem many years ago, about 30 years ago, and they just last year came back and decided to list that district from 30 years ago. So it doesn't happen often, but it can happen that enough property owners object. But usually communities have done the front legwork to take the temperature of their community, find out if it's something they want to do or not. And they've been promoting it all along as the processes move forward so that people are informed and they support it. So there is some legwork if Blowing Rock wanted to pursue that folks would need to do to, just make sure that this is what the town wants. Like I said in the beginning, and Christy also said, National Register is honorary. If you do want to participate in the tax credit program, that's a benefit that becomes available through listing. And that is what happened in Winston-Salem. Because they didn't do the district, a large number of individual property owners or developers got individual buildings listed, then used the tax credits to do rehab projects that have been really successful. And so then a lot of other people started saying, oh, wait, this is not a bad thing. They were able to do this project and it turned out great and then everybody's happy. And so maybe we want to do a whole district. I will share with you briefly here. Pull it up. Let's see. All right. Are you all seeing a map? All right, great. So I am subbing in for Beth King tonight. She couldn't be with us tonight, but she is technically your contact on architectural survey.
Miss Woodard.
Yes.
Could we take a 10-minute break? We've got some people that need to move their automobiles. We're having Main Street paved, so, yeah.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, so give us about 10 minutes.
Okay, no problem.
All right. Okay, we're back in session. Thank you for your patience.
Yeah, no problem. Turn the video, there we go. All right, so I was just gonna share a little map that Beth King drew up. So Beth King is one of my staff members, and she serves the northwestern part of the state. And you guys are in great hands with her, and I'm sorry she couldn't be here tonight, but I do have her map that she drew up and kind of a little bit of an understanding of what her thinking was about a potential district in Blowing Rock. So Beth came to Blowing Rock and met several of y'all on January 24th. And did a nice, sound like a really thorough walk around in downtown Blowing Rock. And she was looking really just at the downtown commercial corridor. And so this was what she found to be kind of that greatest concentration of commercial buildings that are 50 years old. That's one of the basic cutoffs for National Register listing. There are ways around it. Buildings can get listed that are younger than 50 years, but the normal kind of normal path is that they are over 50 years in age. And then also it does leave out some buildings that she felt like did not retain integrity. They didn't retain that quality where they kind of look like they did when they became important. So Blowing Rock, she let me know, and I'm sure you all know, that there was a fairly major fire at Blowing Rock in the commercial district. And mostly what is in Blowing Rock now dates to 1924 or later. So she's thinking that the period of significance would probably start with 1924. And she's also thinking that most of the buildings were constructed pretty soon after the fire. So the period of significance might be pretty short. Sometimes for districts, we bring that period of significance up to the 50-year mark, which right now would be 1975. But she's thinking maybe the period of significance might end around 1930 or so, or maybe World War II. It's something that would develop as someone writes your nomination. There will probably be a point in time where the nomination preparer says, this is the spot, this is the place where we're going to end this part of the story. So like I mentioned, Blowing Rock would want to start with a study list application. And if you are interested in that, I can certainly send you the application. It's fairly simple. And let's see, I know she had a couple more slides in here. Get this to advance. There we go. So for example, this building was built in 2007, and so it's not 50 years old. So it would not be considered a contributing resource in the district. Contributing and non-contributing, that means contributes to the historic character or does not contribute to the historic character. This building might be considered non-contributing. Again, kind of like the period of significance, that's something you would work out as you're working through the nomination. It was constructed within the period or the potential period of significance, and it retains in historic characteristics and fabric, but then the awning is a hard awning, what we call hard awning. It's actually built and attached to the building. So that might be a little problematic. And then the Brass Exchange and Window Wood Antiques would probably be contributing buildings. She recommended a little more research about the age of the arched brick facade for the building in the middle to really pin that down. But those are just a couple of examples to give you the idea of how that contributing and non-contributing concept works and might play out. So that is all I have. I know Christy kind of touched on the 106 review process. If someone would like to know more, I can definitely answer questions, and we're right here. We can answer questions on anything. And as Christy said, we can do that tonight, or folks can email, they can call, anytime.
Thank you, Ms. Woodard. Now, council, any additional questions? Okay. Citizens, do you have questions that you would like to come up and ask?
Oh, I just want to know, how do we get in touch with their office? Would you all have the information and we could get it from you?
Yes. Shane can print out the information and have it here at town hall for him. Could you have Brian or someone do that? Could you do that, Brian? Sure. Okay. And they would have it at the front desk.
From where?
The front desk here at town hall.
I'll email it to you.
She'll email it to you.
Thank you.
And if you need a hard copy, they'll have it at the front desk.
Okay, thank you.
And would you email it to the Historical Society as well?
Sure.
Okay, good.
Where are they located?
Raleigh,
In Raleigh? Okay.
yes. Anybody like to come up and ask questions? Yes, come on up. Marty, how are you? Good. Yeah. State name and address, just for the record.
Marty Osinski, 7756 Globe Road. I just had a question. It talked about a 50% tax deferment on the local designation. How long does it defer to, and what are they deferring? I mean, is it property taxes from the locale, or what else, the state?
Did you hear that question?
Yes, sir, I did. Yes, it's a 50% tax deferment, property tax. The local, and it's individual properties only, and the Preservation Commission would notify the tax person to let them know it's property tax. It is indefinitely because the property would be regulated unless something happened and the property owner did something they weren't supposed to do, or there was a problem that it needed to be de-designated. If it was something that was at the fault of the property owner, 3 years of past tax deferments would have to be paid back. However, if it was like an act of God, that would not have to be done. So all of that is found in North Carolina General Statute 105-278.
Okay. Do we have any other questions for the presenters? Council? All right. Shane, questions?
I'm good.
All right. Mrs. Woodard, Mrs. Brantley, thank you so much for joining us this evening. We really appreciate all your hard work.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Okay, that was informative. You gonna send the slideshow to all of us?
I did, yep, you
Good,
got it.
good, thank you.
You have it right now.
All right, cool.
Some people in the audience would like the PowerPoint.
Yeah,
How do they get that?
We can get it posted on the website.
Okay.
Yeah, we can do that.
so we will have the PowerPoint posted on the website, so you can pull it off, okay? And if you need a hard copy, let us know. We'd be more than happy to get you a hard copy.
Actually, my printer doesn't work. That probably would be a good. Thank you. But it will be on the website.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Okay, moving right along. Public hearing, proposed debt financing. Mr. Fox.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Good evening. I will start this public hearing. You can see the screen behind me is the staff report that you have within your packet. The town staff, along with First Tron Financial Advisors, who the town has utilized for a number of years now for debt issuances, proposed that the town move forward with soliciting bids from financial institutions for an installment loan in the amount of approximately $2.25 million. The loan would cover the cost of Memorial Park project along with the purchase of 2 parcels of property and then much needed upgrades at Fire Station 1. Did not put within this, and I should have, Fire Station 1 will be utilized as collateral for this $2.25 million purchase. The upgrades are proposed as a new roof on Station 1. If the resolution is approved, which is in your packet, staff along with First Trine will begin the bid solicitation process. Once bids are received, staff will bring back to town council the results for consideration. If council finds the bid process to be satisfactory and recommends a bidder for the installment loan, then the staff will proceed with formal approval from the local government commission. As I've stated before, ultimately the local government commission has the authority to approve the application that is within the packet tonight. So step 1 is a public hearing to go over these details and answer any questions you may have, along with giving staff the approval to move forward with not only the solicitation of bids, but the application to the LGC, Local Government Commission, for what would ultimately be the debt approval. I do have within the packet the resolution, which is lengthy, about 3 pages. I will not read it. It was provided to the public, and we can point out any details you would like. But let me get over to a calendar of what we have proposed here. So we are on July the 8th tonight. We're proposing that we would distribute out to banks the RFP on July 15th. We would ask for those to be back by August the 5th. And then we would look to get approval from the Local Government Commission on September the 2nd. We have held that date currently with them. Our next meeting after the 2nd would be September the 9th, of which we would then ask at that time within the typical Tuesday night for a formal approval of the low bid that will be brought to you for the $2.25 million installment loan. So I'll be happy to answer any questions or go into more detail if you would like. I know we've discussed this at several meetings in the past, but we obviously do have a public hearing that is required. It was advertised within the paper as well, which is one of the requirements prior to tonight for the public hearing.
Council, the public hearing is open, and do you all have any questions for Mr. Fox?
So this is a 10-year loan, is what we're looking at?
Correct. That is what we're proposing. And here is a listing of the amortization schedule showing it out through 2035. This was brought up during the budget process. First payment would be due in 2026. It is not currently in the budget that you passed because, again, if you recall, if this was to be approved at the September meeting, we'd move forward with it. Our first payment would be due the following September. So it would be included in the 26-27 budget. And again, if you recall, we have projected that we would have capacity due to the fact that we have 2 significant installment loans, the Buxton property and the fire station property, both rolling off, which would make approximately $500,000 worth of capacity. This would be roughly $225,000 based on our projections.
Do we have anyone from the audience that would like to come up and speak on this public hearing? Okay.
I'll make a motion, we open the public hearing today.
Well, public hearing is open. Okay, do we have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
We have a first and a second. Who was the first? Okay. Doug was the second. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Any additional thoughts from Mr. Fox? Okay, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have 1 first and 3 seconds. I think Melissa will count for the second.
pick.
Whatever.
You pick.
All right. And how do we vote, council, on proposed debt financing?
I vote yes.
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fox.
Thank you.
Okay, moving right along to regular agenda. Loading zones.
Still me. It'll be me for the next couple ones. During the summer retreat, as well as after discussing the potential loan proposed process we just approved. We also discussed loading zones. Town staff, town council discussed the possibility of installing or marking permanently loading zones on Sunset and Main Street. We looked at two areas. I included those two areas in the packet, and I'll be more than happy to bring up more detail here. This is the proposed area that would include the Main Street. This is in front of the Memorial Park and the 1888 Museum, and this is the area on Sunset. The one on Sunset would be utilizing one parking space along with a no parking zone now at the entrance of the school bus garage. After discussions with Chief Kirk and the school, this area is only utilized twice a day for the buses to come in and out. So utilizing this area for a loading zone would not impede with their traffic or cause issues. The second one obviously is a larger area, which is the Main Street one, which is proposed again in front of 1888. That would be a loss of 3 parking spaces there, in addition to the 2 that are currently being proposed to be taken out. I say 3 as in there's only 4 shown there, but our map, I believe, has 5 there technically. So that would be a utilization of those 3 parking spaces for a loading zone. So as asked, I think during the retreat was to bring back up tonight the potential discussion of whether or not the town would like to move forward with permanently marking these as loading zones, of which then we would notify the businesses, et cetera, that would be utilizing these to make sure that they would need to do so. This would be something that we would need to, pass formal approval for us to move forward with this. Main Street is DOT. They're obviously out there paving right now, so we would need to make sure they understood prior to painting that we would be moving forward with the loading zone within the area in front of 1888.
Council? Okay. Yep. Yes, sir.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
So the question is, loading zones are only as good as we enforce the
Correct.
ordinance,
That is correct.
right?
That is correct.
Which I think, so what has been the discussions around future enforcement and making business owners and their suppliers aware of this?
Discussions would be step one. Obviously, I've shared and had conversations with Chief Kirk on the enforcement piece of that, and that would be something that we would start with notifying the business owners and then notifying the actual delivery trucks themselves if that was an issue. We would start with just a communication effort to make sure they're aware that they are now designated areas. Beyond that, we did not include tonight any type of penalties that would be included. That was not something that brought forth tonight, but that's a conversation that could be had if loading zones are not utilized. There could be monetary penalties included within that, similar to our parking fines enforcement.
Penalties to who?
Penalties to the truck drivers, to the ones that would not be utilizing those.
Does that not already exist in terms of blocking traffic or double park?
It does in terms of blocking traffic, et cetera, but we don't specify loading zones in any particular area. Even the ones that we currently have, as in Laurel Lane, we don't specify those within our ordinance. We encourage them, but we don't specify the use of them. So we would need to do so if we wanted to penalize.
Okay.
Yeah, blocking traffic, et cetera, is something that is difficult in this town. We know that just because of the limited space that we have. I will add a couple things that I did not. The one on Sunset, utilizing the one space plus the area. Again, we have a approximate 40 feet worth of area here. So this is not for a tractor trailer, but this would be large enough for a straight truck. Typical large truck is 26 feet plus cab. It would be large enough for that. The area on Main Street, again, the area that's kind of hashed out here is well in excess of 80 feet. So plenty large for any type of vehicle that would be there.
So if we didn't specify penalties this evening, we can always revisit that.
Yes.
If we need to.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so it's one thing that we would have to really talk about, because if not, then there's no incentive for them to really use the loading zone. There's no penalty, there's no incentive there.
And we believe the ability to have a loading zone will be something hopefully they would be encouraged by from a safety standpoint and just the difficult nature of what they currently deal with within the town. But it would need to be a communication process, not only to the business owners, but to the trucks themselves to make sure they're aware that we do have these now.
Are you suggesting we talk about that this evening?
No, I'm just saying, you had talked about, we need to talk about it later, and I'm agreeing with that.
One of the spots on Main Street is a handicap spot, correct?
Correct.
Has it been discussed as to place another spot on Main Street that we can use for that handicap spot we're losing?
Our recommendation would be to utilize another spot that would be in the same area. So the only unfortunate area would be out here in front of Town Hall within this block. Beyond this block, we extended on, beyond here into the next block at Laurel Lane. So our conversations would be that we would add an extra one here within the Town Hall area. Similar type of space, horizontal pull in, back out, et cetera.
Pete?
Shane, when did you say you were going to communicate with the merchants and let them know that this is coming?
We would, yeah, absolutely. I mean, that would be once we know that we're moving forward with it.
Okay.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
the chamber?
Once you
Yes.
approve it.
Yeah, so once we know what we're doing, then
Tonight?
yes, then absolutely our communication efforts would go through the chamber,
Okay.
TDA, et cetera, then to the business owners to let them know, and then ultimately the truck drivers
Thank you.
to encourage it.
I wanted to revisit our discussion at the retreat about loading zone on Main Street. And I think I'm remembering it correctly, but I will, solicit input from everyone. And I recall that we discussed that Kilwins is the primary recipient of the loading zone, the person, the truck coming and loading for Kilwins early in the morning. And there weren't really any others coming during the day to speak of, except maybe food and beverage for Town Tavern, and they go behind Town Tavern, and maybe Story Street Grill.
You have UPS and FedEx as well.
So, and I totally am on board with the sunset, definitely. But what bothers me about Main Street is losing, a total of 5 spaces.
We're already losing a couple.
Losing 2.
But 3 for the loading.
Correct.
Plus the 2 that were already in, so total 5 spaces. Not 5 as a result of the loading zone, but total of 5. And so when parking is at such a premium, I don't know, that just bothers me. Now, UPS and FedEx have gotten along. Where do they park now?
Middle of the road.
I don't know. I'm downtown a lot, and I never see one of those.
They're fast.
In the middle
Laurel
of-
Laurel Lane is utilized as much as anywhere in town for a loading zone. That's the one place that we see them quite often, and then they do double park at times if there's no available space anywhere for to get into. UPS typically does a really good job of looking to get off the street. FedEx typically in the past has double parked in places.
And that would have been a good place for the loading zone, except that there's really nowhere for them to continue on down and really turn. I think it's a little sharp for them to make either turn down there, isn't it?
Yes.
Point well taken. I did notice we had 60,000 people in for our parade on a Saturday, and I don't know where in the world they parked. But thank you for your input. Any other thoughts, council? Does someone want to make a motion?
Is this something that we're not allowed to ask questions about?
Correct.
Thank you.
But thank you for asking.
You can run for town council if you get elected. You can ask questions.
I'll make a motion to approve the loading zones as presented.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Doug made a second. Any further discussion? Okay. How do we vote? Kat?
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Doug?
All right.
Pete? Okay. All right, moving right along on the regular agenda, we got the code of conduct, which has gone through very much like our Constitution, a number of revisions, one of which we understand is new again. So Shane, go for it.
I will start with a similar opening statement here. So during our summer retreat, town staff, town council reviewed and discussed a draft of the code of conduct, which you received prior to the summer retreat for elected officials and appointed board members of the town of Blowing Rock. The topic of code of conduct began initially at the winter retreat, and staff has worked diligently to draft a copy for review and possible adoption by town council. Let me pull up the most recent version of what we have here. Just
Do you have the most recent? That's what, is that what he has?
Whatever he sent out today.
Yes. So let me move this way. And this, just for the public's purpose, this is an overview of it. It is a fairly lengthy document, 16 pages in length. First section is dealing with ethics. Second, conduct. Conduct has 8 subcategories. First, overview of council members and mayor's roles and responsibilities. Second, general policies and protocol. 3, that EAO, that's our elected officials and others conduct with how they conduct business with one another. Conduct with town staff, conduct with public, council conduct with other public agencies. Number 7, council conduct with boards and commissions. And number 8, conduct with the media. Section C is sanctions, and D and E would be glossary of terms and implementation. So again, I will not read all 16 pages. What was made prior, what was sent as part of the packet versus what you have tonight was grammatical changes. There was nothing with real substance that was changed outside of grammatical changes. Most notably, council members have been changed to council members and or the mayor. So council members was 1 word, that's now 2 words. That was the most significant grammatical changes, along with some additions of some other 2s and 4s and et cetera. So each one of you had a chance to review and provide feedback, and I have included 100% of that within the document we have here. So be more than happy to go through each section and hit some highlights. Again, the first section dealing with ethics. This is very similar to the code of ethics that you have now and have adopted prior, dealing with decisions based on merit, conflict of interest, et cetera, confidential information. This is very typical of what you have. The conduct section is a much larger section, again, 8 subcategories, and is much more lengthy than what you have had in the past as part of the code of ethics. First, dealing with roles and responsibilities from the mayor pro tem, and then council members. And then we go into the boards with the meeting chair and those members, et cetera. Most of this are based on Robert's Rules of Order, or most of this is based on parliamentary history that each one of you have seen and been a part of through your ethics training, et cetera. General policies and protocol, again, whether we're dealing with travel or events, roles and rules of the orders of the meetings and agenda items, how they make it within from you all to the agenda, public hearings as we had one tonight, et cetera. And then number 3 is conduct with one another, whether it's in public meetings and how you deal with one another, whether it's in private encounters, et cetera. And then we go into conduct with town staff. Again, routine requests for information, making sure everyone's aware of what's being requested, et cetera. Be happy to answer any questions. I'm not sure how much in depth you would like for me to go tonight with each one of these. If you were interested in adopting this tonight, this would be something that we would need to share with all of our boards. The purpose of this is not only for you all, this is your code of conduct, your code of ethics. It's also going to be requested to be signed by each one of our board members as well, whether that's planning board, TDA, board of adjustments, et cetera. So be glad to answer any questions, go into anything with more in-depth analysis, et cetera.
I thought it looked very thorough to me. The spelling of council member was, that came from Blowing Rock Elementary,
It is an accepted word.
Yeah.
It is.
It's just not real common.
But no, I think, thanks for everybody's work on that. I think it looked fine. Joey, you?
Correct,
Good,
yeah, I
good,
mean, I
bad.
went ahead and reviewed that earlier, and I just made one change, I think it was page 15.
Yep.
Maybe just switching out a word, just to clarify one thing.
Okay. Council, what do you think?
I have a number of questions, but I'll defer to someone else if they would like to go first.
Go ahead.
I do have one question. Did we discuss how often we would require signatures for this? Would it be once a year or once a term?
A suggestion I would have would be once a year. I think it's good as a refresher and reminder that we would do this around the same time that we would be appointing new board members. So that would typically be at the February meeting or March meeting that we would just request everyone to have a refresher. Maybe it's a good time to provide an overview of what's in the document to everyone at the same time. We can utilize that potentially for the winter retreat, et cetera. But I think annually makes sense to us and what that would need to be timing-wise, each year be adopted or re-adopted.
Is that something that needs to be included in the document?
Yes, absolutely. We can add that part of the implementation piece as well.
Okay, David? You said you had about 4 dozen questions?
I got about 4 dozen.
Okay. Take a recess.
First question I had was on page 7.
Okay.
Down at the bottom, it says an appeal protocol. An appeal was throwing me as if there was an appeal process, but maybe that's a term I'm not familiar with in this context.
So, again, I think this is technical. So dealing with public hearings and the protocol piece within that. Again, this is, I've stated this during the summer retreat, but I'll say it again for the public. A lot of this information was combined from several others within that. This area, I'm not sure that we've had this come up as dealing with this. From a time, if we feel like the time is too limited with what's being spoken or what's being said. This is based on 3 minutes, but it's based on the time allotment that's being given to those individuals. We typically in the past have not, on public hearings, limited time. We've allowed longer times than that.
I understand what the paragraph is describing, but is appeal the correct word for that?
Okay. It was what was utilized.
Okay.
I'm not sure that is the right term. I mean, we could,
Ask our town attorney if
Yeah, I was
that's.
going to say, what do you think, Joey?
Sure, just give me 1 second to read over that paragraph.
Can we come back to that and I'll
sure.
skip over that then? On page 10, I'll let everybody catch up.
What section is that?
I'm getting there. Do not solicit political support from staff. That is about halfway down the page.
Yes.
It says financial contributions, display of posters or loan signs, name on support list. I would like to add research and staff time to that list. I know this is not an all, I understand what et cetera means, but I think research and staff time would be an important example to include there. Same page. And please stop me if you'd like to discuss any of these. Under be fair and equitable in allocating public hearing time, I think it's the second sentence at the end. I think we need to add or chair. So it says mayor or chair.
Or chair, yeah.
Page 12. Number 6. I think we need to delete council. because this paragraph is dealing with council, mayor, boards, and commissions. So the title should just be conduct with other public
Okay.
agencies.
All right.
In that same section, be equally clear in correspondence. The town letterhead and/or the town seal may be used when the EAO, not just council member.
Okay.
So that would be applicable to everybody. Number 7 on the same page, I think the title needs to be council and mayor.
Are you talking about the title there?
Number 7 title,
Yeah, the number 7 title.
council and mayor conduct with boards and commissions.
I thought that we changed that at the very beginning, that council represented mayor and everybody there.
We did, but redundancy, we've also included each one of our references to council, we've included the mayor now as well, separately, looking at that.
If you include mayor on 7, would you not include mayor on 6?
Well, no, 6 is referring to council, mayor, boards, and commissions. So you either need to put all of those groups in the title or just make it conduct, since it applies to all groups. All right, we're getting there, guys.
That's good.
Did you attend Harvard?
That's good. They tell
No, I got a real education.
Wolfpack education.
Yeah. Page 14, under sanctions, the paragraph that starts with council members and mayor behavior and conduct. This section deals with just council members and mayor, but we also have language about chairs of boards and commissions in here, which is a separate section. Particularly the first sentence in that subsection. I think we could take out EAOs at the end and just add "and mayor." And then the next EAO in the start of the second sentence, council members and mayor.
All right, help me where you are. So
Okay.
we are under,
Sanctions.
yep,
Third paragraph.
council members and mayor behavior and conduct, okay?
Yep. I think that it says expected for members
Yes.
of the Blowing Rock Town Council, comma, EAOs.
Right, so take out, just leave EAOs
Well, I would add "and mayor."
and mayor, okay?
Then the next sentence starts with EAO.
Okay,
So again, we need to put council members and mayor,
all right.
since this section doesn't deal with EAO, even though that is a larger group of.
All right,
Have we got an answer on appeal?
Yeah, I mean, I would swap out that word
in the title for testimonial.
testimonial,
And then also, looking at that paragraph as well, up in the first sentence, instead of prescribing a certain period of time, where it says usually 3 minutes, I would put in the language for a reasonable and meaningful length of time.
so changing appeal protocol to testimony,
Yeah, I would just, after that first line where it says
Testimonial.
will determine the reasonable and meaningful length of time for the presentation. And then just getting rid of that usually 3 minutes.
so after presentation, you would change it, say it one more time, I'll link the edit here.
Well, yeah, so at the end of that first line, it says, the mayor or chair will determine the reasonable and meaningful length of time for the presentation, and then just period.
Okay, back to you, Dave.
Page 15. Under board and commission members' behavior and conduct, there's mention of a town secretary. Should that be town clerk?
Yes. Sorry.
Or 3, 4, fourth paragraph in that same category. I think it's the second to last sentence. It says the non-implicated town council members. So this is dealing, this subsection is on boards and commissions, so there shouldn't be a non-implicated town council member in this section.
Good catch.
Yeah, yep, I see. Just change that to town council members.
Yeah, I think we just delete non-implicated.
All right.
Page 16, I learned a new word, consanguinity. And yes, I had to look up how to pronounce that. My question for the town attorney is, that refers to a blood relative, but in a legal sense, does that refer to, does that include a non-blood relative, such as an adopted child?
You can come back on that. Do you have other?
Yep.
Thank you. So we can multitask here.
Under implementation on the same page, I think it's down at the bottom, it says town council. I think we need to put in the mayor since we include town council, boards and commissions. I don't want to leave the mayor out.
Yeah, I ain't been left.
And this is where we also add a sentence that, on implementation, the adopting of this would be an annual process.
Okay.
Yeah. If that's okay with everyone, if that's satisfactory.
2 more things.
Okay.
I'm gonna skip up to the definition of relative. It says any person related to an officer. So officer, as I understand it, would be a pretty particular position. I think EAO. I mean, so a person on the planning board, for instance, is not an officer, are they?
Okay. So relative means any person related to
An EAO.
an AO. Okay.
Versus officer. And the last is on the acknowledgement on the last page, page 17. At the beginning, we refer to it as the code of ethics. I think it needs to be code of ethics and conduct in 2 instances here.
Okay. Yep, so
And
first
that is-
first sentence and the last sentence.
Yeah. And that is it, and I appreciate everybody's indulgence.
I thought you were on vacation the last few days.
Good catches. Really good.
And to answer your question, so spouse and adoptive child will be third. So it's saying within the second degree, that would fall under third degree.
So we need to change it?
If we included the word relative, that would also suffice as well. I mean, as defined in statute. I don't know,
You want to get back to us on that?
yeah, I can provide an exact site. I believe it's section 104A-1, but I'll confirm that with you.
I defer to you.
Well, since there were so many changes made, would council like to hold off on voting on this until the next draft comes out? Or should we go ahead and vote on it before David has time to sleep on more changes? What do y'all want to do?
I don't want to give him another month to think about it.
Pete?
I think it's for the amount of time that Shane's put in on this and the timeliness of getting this done. And thank you, David, for taking all the time to go through and make the changes or suggestions that you have, but I suggest we move forward.
Are you making a motion?
I am.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay,
Let me take a moment then and read through the changes that we suggested tonight, just for the video and the record, if that's okay with everyone. So,
we'll hold the motions then.
And I can provide these, Ms. Hubner, if you need to.
and I've got my notes here as well. So our first change is on page 7, under appeal protocol. Is that correct, David? I don't have anything prior to page 7.
That's correct.
And we would be changing appeal to testimonial protocol. And we would change in the second sentence that mayor or chair will determine a reasonable length of time for the presentation. Nothing on page 8 or 9. 10, under do not solicit political support from staff, includes the addition of research or staff time as well.
Research, staff time, comma, et cetera.
Et cetera. Yep. Last paragraph, the mayor or chair, it's under be fair and equitable, adding by the mayor or chair to that end of the second sentence was in that paragraph. No changes on 11. 12, number 6, removing counsel, so just conduct with other public agencies. Under 6 as well, be equal, clear, and correspondence, we're changing on the first sentence, council member to EAO. On number 7, council and mayor conduct of boards and commissions is the title. No changes on 13. 14, under C, sanctions council members and mayor behavior and conduct. At the end of the first sentence, adding Blowing Rock Town Council and mayor and EAOs, and then the same beginning of the next sentence, town council, mayor, and EAOs. Second sentence from that paragraph. Page 15, changing under board and commission member behavior and conduct, the word town secretary to town clerk. The next to last paragraph, taking out the non-implicated town council members. That sentence will just start with town council members. 16, relative means any person related to an EAO. And what is our determination for the remainder of that sentence?
I mean, ultimately, it's up to you whether, that should read second or third degree. However we define it there, I would suggest after that word doing comma as computed under NC Gen Stat 104A-1. So, but whether that's second or third, that's you guys' decision.
So right now with the EAO within the second degree as stated under North Carolina General Statute 104A-1, would end the sentence there.
Yeah, I mean, I would say second degree, really right before it says or an affinity, I would just do comma as computed under and then cite 104A-1, comma, or affinity.
Satisfactory? Same page 16, adding at the bottom, under implementation, town council and the mayor, adding that language last sentence. And then on page 17, adding in 2 places, the addition of code of ethics and conduct, first sentence and last sentence.
Shane.
Yes.
One thing thought. Put that after affinity.
After affinity.
Yeah, so comma.
So we're changing nothing within the sentence other than officer to EAO, and then.
Yeah, instead of the period, then comma as computed under, and then cite the statute.
So somewhere in there, you're gonna have to put the definition of that also. Because they're not gonna know, reading it, somebody's not gonna know what 104A is. You're gonna have to add that in somewhere in there.
Yeah, I mean, so the title of that section is degrees of kinship, how computed.
Is that satisfactory to add the definition or add the is 104A-1 fairly lengthy? I mean, we can add it to it if you would like.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying, if
Correct.
anybody reading it's not gonna know what they're signing unless you tell them what 104A is.
Okay. We can add it in there if we can add it to the bottom of that section. If that's satisfactory, just with the definition. So those are the changes
All right,
that I have made.
those are the changes. Do we have a motion? Do we continue with the motions you made, Pete? And the second was good from Melissa? Did you make, yeah, okay.
I've got a question. So we're gonna vote on it, but we're not gonna sign it until all the changes are made.
That's correct. Yes, yes.
Question I have, I was going to ask this question, was when would we like to implement this? We have an implementation piece, but what is our date of implementation? Not only for you all, but for our board members as well.
I think that's something that needs to be implemented as soon as possible. And then repeat it, once the new board members come on again. And then at winter retreat, what do you guys think?
So at the next board meetings, they would have an opportunity to sign it or read it or.
Yes.
Could you plan for all the boards, including us, to sign it in August? That way that gives you time to make the changes, get them printed, and
Yeah,
that'd
we
be
would-
satisfactory to everyone.
Yeah, I don't think we will wait till the next board meeting for each one. We have access to email and obviously correspond with them prior to that. We just I would need some guidance on if we have a date that we'd like for these to be signed and approved. If it's the August board meeting for you all, then
Could we shoot
that
for
to
the
the
end of
rest of
August? Just say we'd like everybody to have, and then we can do that the individual. Is there a board or commission not meeting in August?
TDA would be September, the 1st of September,
And the Board of Adjustments.
and Board of Adjustments. But again, these could be electronically passed back.
I would say either the end of August or September. Which would you be more comfortable with?
Very easy to obtain either one for us.
Let's do August.
Okay. August 31st.
That's my recommendation.
I'm good with that.
All right. We have a motion. We have a second. Good point, Kat. Good call, Dave. Do we have a vote? Kat?
Yes.
David?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Doug? All right. Pete?
Yes.
Good. Thank you.
Thanks for all your hard work.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot.
All righty. Right along, official reports. As you all are aware, Main Street paving is taking place. We're really sorry that it did not take place before the 4th of July parade, but we understand that the asphalt plant had to close. And so our contractor was not able to get asphalt, but they're moving forward. The parade, I want to say thank you to Parks and Rec, Public Works, Police Department, administration, and all the volunteers and the town council for making it very successful, and of course, our beloved town manager. Thanks, Shane. Let's see. The sign up for the upcoming election opened yesterday. So if anybody has an aspiring idea to get into politics, you can go over to Talbot County and sign up. You have till the 18th, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
Friday.
And last but not least, I think I do speak for the council. Our prayers go out to all those that have lost so much in Texas and lives in Texas. And of course, now our Eastern North Carolina friends, Piedmont and Eastern North Carolina friends that have lost so much and lost their lives, and our prayers go out to you. So that's it.
I don't have anything.
Okay. David?
Nothing.
Melissa?
I'm good.
Doug?
Couple of things. I was at my retreat for risk management, 2 weeks ago now, and a couple of things that was brought up is, more than likely, and I've talked with Representative Pickett also to make sure on this, but we were told there that more than likely House Bill 205 will be headed back and heard again. Just quick as they go back in session. And as you know, 765 is not completely dead, but what they're taking is, moving some of the things out of the big bill into other bills. They're kind of, as we said, piecemeal in it, trying to get the whole thing through, but in under different ways. And thank goodness Representative Pickett's working hard to try and get everything stopped. So keep him going. Couple of things that we talked about too that's driving the cost of insurance up, which we have no really true answers for, is there has been a rash this year of premature babies. We don't know where that's coming from, what's causing it, but that's one of the things that has happened in the past years that you're seeing. So, and the other thing, and I think I talked to the Chief Kirk about this, is they're looking to make sure that any police departments that have drones, their operators are certified. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Pete?
I mentioned to Shane before the meeting about speeding down by Chitola. Now that that's all paved, it seems like that's become a bit of a racetrack. And so Shane had some suggestions that you might want to share.
Yeah, I guess the potential side effect of a new road is a smooth road. We're more than happy to put radar signs up temporarily to see if we can capture some data that typically slows down cars for a period of time. But again, being DOT's road, I'm not positive we can go beyond that outside of just some typical deterrent that we do with visual radars, et cetera.
And I think we also, when Doug and I talked about the DOT and striping there by Chitola, that crosswalk that's supposed to, that light, I guess there's a light there. That would be helpful if I think they said that they were going to do that, but it would be good to have them follow up and make sure that gets done.
Okay.
Thank you.
Certainly.
Joey?
Relatively quick tonight. I think you've heard from me quite a bit. Same with the parade. Thank you to everyone put up here, Parks and Rec, Police, Fire, Public Works, Landscaping, IT. It's become an every department hands-on experience for everyone. Did not put on here, but thank you to ASU Police, the Sheriff's Department, Town of Boone as well. I think each year we find ways to improve. Thank you to Chief Kirk and Jennifer Brown and so many others that have led the way for so many years to help put together a very good plan on how the parade takes place. It's an hour worth of activities, but there's many weeks and months leading up to it, and debriefings that take place after. We learn something each year, which is a positive thing for us to learn upon. Weather was perfect. I think our attendance had to be as equal or not better than ever before. We don't have any way of gathering those numbers necessarily, but there was a lot of people here, and they did find somewhere to park, as the mayor pointed out. Main Street paving is going on, yes, right now. I don't know, I haven't looked out there to see if they're putting asphalt down. Thank you to DOT and Maymead and others for working diligently to get the road paved and put back together. We are expecting the main section to be completed tonight, and then the south end to be completed tomorrow night into the following night, and then markings will take place thereafter. There is ditch line work that will have to take place on Globe Road and along Main Street. We're expecting another couple weeks worth of work here, not as intrusive necessarily. Outside of the markings, once that takes place, we'll have to have cars removed again. But thank you to all those involved in the process of Main Street paving. And Memorial Park, just in time for the 4th and the holidays, we did open up the volleyball court, aka the sandbox. If you haven't seen it, the beautiful white sand is a favorite place of all the kids to dig. So lots of toys being brought and played with out there. The new playground, I don't think, could have been more popular. over the 4th. If you were here, you saw hundreds and hundreds of kids playing on it. And again, that project continues to be on pace, on schedule, on budget. Expectation completion date there is around the middle of September, so we're not too far from that. But be glad to answer any questions that you may have with regards to anything town related.
Okay. Thank you, Shane. Great job. We're going to go into closed session.
North Carolina General Statute 143-318.1185.
Okay, we'll take a 9-minute recess.
Let's go, man.
To,